Good day, everyone. My topic is all about decision making. But before we go through to our discussion, let us define first what is decision making. The decision making is defined as the selection of a course of action from among alternatives to produce a desired result. Sometimes, decision making is a simple one, and it is the core of planning. A plan cannot be said to exist unless a decision that relates to commitment of resources, direction, and reputation has been made. In psychology, decision making is regarded as the cognitive process resulting in the selection of a belief or a course of action among several possible alternative options. Now let's move on to the three approaches in selecting an alternative. Managers can use three fundamental approaches when selecting among alternatives in a given circumstances, and these are the following. First is experience. Experience refers to conscious events in general, more specifically to perceptions, or to the practical knowledge and familiarity that is produced by these conscious processes. Reliance on past experience most likely plays a larger part than it deserves in decision making, so most managers use largely the wealth of their experience in the process of decision making. Experienced managers believe that the things they have successfully accomplished and the mistakes they have made furnish almost infallible guides to the future. Perhaps, if a manager carefully analyzes experience rather than blindly follow it, and he distills from experience the basic reasons for success or failure, then experience can be useful as a basis for decision analysis. While situations are dynamic, caution should be exercised with a prudence on over-reliance on experience. Second is experimentation. Experimentation is a process often used in scientific inquiry. One way to decide among alternatives is to try one of them and wait for the result. The experimental technique is found to be the most expensive technique because the program requires heavy expenditures of capital and personal resources. Besides, after an experiment has been tried, there may still be doubt about what is true, since the future may not duplicate the present. So this technique is recommended only after considering other available alternatives. Third is the research and analysis. It is a systematic investigation to establish facts or principles or to collect information on a subject. Management practitioners agree that one of the most effective techniques for choosing from alternatives when major decisions are involved is research and analysis. This approach involves a search for relationships among critical variables, constraints, and premises that have direct bearing upon the goal sought. Study and analysis are found to be cheaper than experimentation because the time and paper used for analysis usually costs much less than trying various alternatives. Types of decisions. The manager needs to have a clear grasp of various types of decisions. These are the two fundamental types of decisions. First is program decisions. Now, the program decisions are those that are routine and repetitive in nature. They rely primarily on previously established criteria. So, the example of program decisions are: first is a university's decision about how to process a student request to drop or to add a course. Second, a hospital's process for admitting new patients. Third, a supervisor's disciplinary action when a worker reports to work in an intoxicated condition. Fourth, a maintenance department's decision about the frequency of maintenance, servicing of machinery and equipment. Then the second type of decisions is unprogrammed decision. So this unprogrammed decision are those that occur infrequently, and because of different variables, they require a separate response each time. So, many management training programs on decision making are designed to help management to think through problems using a logical and non-programmed approach. In this case, they learned how to deal with extraordinary and unexpected problems. So example of unprogrammed decisions are the following. First, to buy a new car and what brand of car to buy. Second, to select one job offer from the many received. Third, when to promote to the vacant position in the company. Then fourth is the marketing of a small video camera by Kodak. Conditions in decision making. Decisions are made under one of the three possible conditions, and these are the following. First is certainty. The certainty is the epistemic property of beliefs which a person has no rational grounds for doubting. So, in a situation involving certainty, people are reasonably sure about what will happen when they make a certain type of decision. So, the information is made available and is considered to be reliable. The cause and effect relationships are known under this condition, since the manager has enough information on hand to know the outcome of the decision before it is made. An example is when one deposits his money in the bank on a time deposit plan. He can compute the interest at a given length of time with certainty because the bank has given him the terms and conditions, and the manager can decide with certainty on a given problem situation if he has all the information pertaining to the problem on hand. Second is uncertainty. Uncertainty refers to epistemic situations involving imperfect or unknown information. So, uncertainty exists when the probabilities of the various outcomes are not known. So, the manager feels unable to assign estimates to any alternatives. While the situation may seem hopeless, mathematical techniques have also been developed. In a condition of uncertainty, people have only a meager database. They do not know whether or not the data are reliable. Third is risk. In a simple terms, it is the possibility of something bad happening. So, most managerial decisions are made under the condition of risk. Risk exists when the individual has some information regarding the outcome of the decisions but does not know everything. When making a decision under the condition of risk, the manager may find it helpful to use probabilities. To the degree that probability assignments are accurate, he can make a good decision. In a risk situation, factual information may be present, but it may be incomplete. To improve decision making, one may estimate the objective probabilities of an outcome by using, for example, mathematical models. So the effective manager must investigate each alternative in order to be as accurate as possible in making probability assignments. Now, let's move to the making effective decision. When a manager has to make a decision, he should strive to be as effective as possible. One way of ensuring effectiveness is to follow the steps in the decision-making process. The second way is to use guidelines that will help carry out this process. Irving Janis and Lehman in 1978 have found the 7 guidelines to be of particular value in making effective decisions, and these are: first, thoroughly canvass a wide range of alternative courses of action. Second, survey the full range of objectives to be fulfilled and the values that are implied in the choice. Third, carefully weigh whatever is known about the cause and the risk of negative consequences, as well as the positive consequences that flow from each alternative. Fourth, intensively search for new information relevant to the further evaluation of the alternative. Fifth, correctly assimilate and take into account any new information or exert judgment to which one is exposed, even when the information or judgment does not support the course of action initially prepared. Sixth is re-examine the positive and negative consequences of all known alternatives, including those originally regarded as unacceptable, before making a final choice. And last is make detailed provision for implementing or executing the chosen course of action with special attention to contingency plans that might be required if various known risks were to materialize. The rational decision-making process. Now, the rational decision-making process describes how a decision is made. This process of decision-making or arriving at a final decision is really a complex process. Now, the step 1 is to understand and define the problem. When you are first faced with a decision, if you're like the most people, you tend to weigh right into it without thinking much about it. A frequent mistake is to observe the symptoms and treat them as underlying causes. Let's remember that the problem presents itself through its symptom. There's need to dig deeper and uncover the real cause and not just treat the symptoms. Step 2. Generate alternatives. Once you have a clear definition and understanding of the problem, you are prepared to generate alternatives. If there is no choice of alternatives, there's really no decision to be made. The use of staff groups and the counsel of others may lead to the development of certain alternatives that the manager might not have been able to identify alone. So the managers do not usually have complete information at this disposal when making the decisions. Step 3. Evaluate alternatives. Assuming that alternatives have been derived, the next step is for you to evaluate them. So it is important to understand not only the benefit of each alternative and how such benefit may influence the decision objectives, but also the potential negative side and cost of each alternative. One approach to evaluating alternatives is for one or more alternatives to be assigned to an individual, who then identifies their pros and cons and presents this to the decision maker. In this way, one person or perhaps a team will be responsible for fully exploring the decision potential of a given alternative. The step 4 is make the decision and implement it. The fourth decision-making step causes problem for many managers. After getting the facts, the managers may still not be able to decide. For the analysis and interpretation of the facts may make it more difficult to make a clear-out decision. So, effective decision-making doesn't stop when a decision is made. It also entails good follow-through and implementation by the parties involved. In fact, many good decisions may be ruined by ineffective implementation, but the decision maker is most often held responsible. The last step is evaluate the decision result. After making and implementing the decision, you still have not finished your job. Now, you must perform the control function of management. That is, you must evaluate whether the implementation is proceeding smoothly and the decision is attaining the desired result. So if the decision turns out to have been a poor one, you aren't bound by any rule to stick with it. In many cases, it is less costly for a manager to admit having made a poor decision that doesn't accomplish its objectives. So that's all. Thank you.